This is Swanson home. Something's going down. Something's going down. Police is everywhere. All exits are blocked off. Squad team is out here.
A teenage boy is dead after he was shot in Portsmouth last week. We first brought you this story from Swanson Homes. It's breaking news on Friday.
This is just one of the many complaints we're hearing from Swanson home residents. We took their concerns to the Housing Authority Acting Director.
Let me just say to you, they can boil hot water. We are doing everything possible to try and get those units back online.
Police making this move around in Swanson Homes, blocking off all streets in Swanson Homes.
Checking all cars.
Checking all cars.
Yeah. Anybody come here.
If you decide to come, if you not come in the park, you will be stopped.
Yeah, you will be stopped.
Portsmouth police say officers were already patrolling the neighborhood when they heard the shots just before 11 and came to the scene, discovering 17-year-old Randy Gaynor seriously hurt. A sad sight for neighbors, many too afraid to reveal their identities on camera.
PRHA, the agency that oversees Swanson Homes, admits there's mold in some units, but says there's no health concerns.
Yes, there was some mold, but we've had a company come out and remediate all of that. They've been working, in fact, they're still there doing a little bit more.
Goddamn Walker. This goddamn Walker. This Walker. Zombie. This Walker. What's up, man? Zombie come in here and bite all of us. And nothing you can do.
I don't know why I became so fascinated with this neighborhood. I lived close to it and would drive past it many times while it was still open. All I ever knew of this housing projects were things that I had heard or stories I had seen on the news. And sadly, nothing I had ever heard about this community was good. If you were to ask me about Swanson Homes, all I would be able to tell you were the things that I had heard. That it was poverty-stricken, plagued by violence and addiction. Over the course of the last few years, I watched as the neighborhood slowly dwindled away, and more apartments became boarded up. I had always thought that it was fires that were causing this, but after becoming interested in this now abandoned neighborhood and learning more about it, I realized that this was probably more so due to mold and the condemned nature of these apartments, and the city just wasn't willing to put the money towards the repairs needed. I'm not exactly sure what happened, but one day, Swanson Homes was just shut down, fenced off, and that was it. A neighborhood that had been a part of the city of Portsmouth for so long was now nothing more than a massive plot of land with empty buildings. Why did it close? Why did it seem the city just decided to give up on this community? Wouldn't it be cheaper to fix this place rather than just abandon it? And where did all the people go who had lived there to the very end? Eventually, this neighborhood will be no more. Its probable fate is demolition, and I imagine soon there will be nothing left of this place. And because there's so little history that I've been able to find, I became compelled to create this, to preserve and showcase what little I could about what Swanson Homes was like. Sadly, there seems more negative than positive. However, the positive should stand out, as it seems it was mostly local organizations that tried to bring some form of hope and help to what would end up being a mostly helpless community.
Police making this move around in Swanson Homes, blocking off all streets
Yep.
in Swanson Homes.
They checking all cars.
Checking all cars.
Yeah. Anybody come here, me and her walk down.
If you decide to come,
Get
do
ready.
not come in the
Get
park.
outside.
You will be stopped.
You will be stopped.
Swanson Homes is blocked off. Do not come in the park.
Yep, it's blocked off.
Swanson Homes, Portsmouth, Virginia. Originally opening in July of 1941, and a neighborhood that holds historical significance. Developed to address the public housing needs of the local community, particularly African American residents, during a time of segregation, Swanson Homes was built as part of a federal initiative under the New Deal Act to provide affordable housing for working class families. The project was notable because it was one of the few developments accessible to black residents at the time due to segregation in housing policies. This neighborhood was home to many residents in the city of Portsmouth for 80 years. And by the time it closed just recently, it was sadly just a rundown, dilapidated housing projects. This was a large neighborhood that had been a part of the city for decades, featuring 210 two-story apartment units and 31 buildings. The only amenities this community seemed to offer was a small playground for children. And in comparison to the rest of this housing project, that playground looked newer than anything else on the property.
Chopper 10 above a washed-out community.
There was about a foot of water inside my house.
Homes flooded fast in Swanson.
Water that kept on coming in, coming in like that, because there wasn't nothing I can do. Everything in my house is soaking wet. The rug, the chair, the sofa.
One of the biggest events that took place in Swanson Homes, and seems to be the straw that really broke the camel's back in this community, was Hurricane Michael back in 2016. Swanson Homes suffered flooding throughout the neighborhood due to this storm, and it seemed to be where a lot of things began to go wrong, especially when it comes to how the city handled things afterwards. Residents were left with mold issues beginning to take shape immediately after the storm, and even worse, damage was done to many of the hot water heaters on the property due to the flooding. When the local news took notice, it had already been 2 weeks that residents had been without hot water.
Oh, boiling water so I can do dishes.
In the microwave.
Because we don't have any hot water.
Sheba Sumter is finding new ways to do simple things. This after she says the Portsmouth Housing and Redevelopment Authority has done very little to resolve issues left behind by the storm. 2 feet of water inside her home has led to no heat, no hot water, and mold growing on the walls.
All the way around, they're going to get sick. It's just not right. It's not fair. And they're so nonchalant about the whole situation. It's like
Keith Johnson lives next door. Despite the problems, he says he's forced to return home because he can't afford to pay for a hotel any longer.
And by the time you boil water, they try to put on top of other warm water, other water's cold.
It's been 3 weeks. Do you think you should have hot water by now?
I think we should, but I don't know what's going on.
And when they asked the interim director of the Portsmouth Redevelopment and Housing Authority about this, her response was that residents could boil water.
Let me just say to you, they can boil hot water. We are doing everything possible to try and get those units back online.
But boiling water, lack of heat, and concerns about mold have been going on for 17 days.
Without the news getting involved, it's interesting to think how things would have gone for these residents. But because of the attention the news was able to bring to this community, the city had no choice but to act. But this didn't bring immediate results. And in fact, what it first began to showcase was the poor management of this city that sadly has been an ongoing struggle for a long time. There was a lot of back and forth between the Portsmouth Redevelopment and Housing Authority and the inspections director about what repairs were being done and why things were taking so long.
Doug Smith, the inspections director, is checking for proof that the Housing Authority is really doing the work they say is happening.
Do you feel like they're not doing enough for these people? Do you feel like these people...
I'm not going to comment on anything like that.
But PRHA is not doing enough for Doug Smith's department. They've owed him a comprehensive plan for remediation for at least a week.
So the housing authority needs to show you they're going to make these livable again.
That's correct.
And
it is their responsibility to do that.
And at this point, you're not confident in the plan?
They haven't submitted me enough of a plan as I have asked for to be confident or not.
And why? I mean, why? It seems like you should have had it by now.
Those aren't questions that I can answer.
And that's why he was out Thursday checking on the work himself.
But we also are going to be here at 9 o'clock tomorrow.
9 o'clock tomorrow morning, just continuing to
Yes.
check. Okay.
Same
and
thing.
hoping that you get that written plan.
Yes. Yes.
Is there a final deadline on that?
I'm sure that there will be. I haven't decided on that yet.
There would even be speculation about a road expansion project that possibly caused the water runoff to be redirected into Swanson homes.
They're saying that the water is probably being redirected to them to make it convenient for other people in the city.
We tend to believe that that might have been the major cause of the flooding.
The MLK Extension project runs parallel to South Street on the west side of Swanson Homes.
With an outsider's look at all of this, it seemed like everyone was trying to pass the blame as to why this happened, who was responsible to pay for the massive amount of repairs needed, and mostly, why things weren't being done, or at least being done in any sort of timely manner. Again, with the news taking such an interest in all of this, motel vouchers began to be issued for residents who suffered the most. But this wasn't until after 2 weeks had passed, and these residents had been left to deal with mold issues and no hot water.
No trespassing seen on more than 25 doors across Swanson Homes.
He said, well, you had to go because we're condemning the place.
Dionne Bazemore was checking on her daughter Rajan's house when she says an inspector told her the family had until the end of the day to get out.
Packing up as much as we can since I have 4 children. It's a lot, but...
Scrambling to load up everything that will fit into a hotel room provided by the PRHA for now.
Right now, they got us there for a week. We get out on the 2nd. But if y'all didn't condemn the house, then...
After the 2nd.
Not telling us what they're going to do after with this hotel. The hotel is not even sufficient for real.
Dontoris Jordan says his family can't cook there and can barely store food. The school bus doesn't pick his kids up there either. But at least there's hot water, heat, and furniture. Here at home, they went without that for weeks.
Hell, that's what's been spending a lot of money, and it just been hell.
Eventually, repairs were done, but I'm not sure to what extent. I imagine the damage done by Hurricane Michael would leave some apartments condemned, and the city thinking the cost of repairs were just too high. And possibly other issues were left unresolved as well that over time would cause other units, or even entire buildings, to become condemned as well. I personally remember that right before Swanson Homes closed, I would drive by and notice that many of its buildings and windows were completely boarded up. I couldn't find a lot of information about Swanson Homes closing. I read that the Portsmouth Redevelopment and Housing Authority decided to close the property due to aging infrastructure, safety concerns, and declining living conditions, with residents supposedly relocated to improve their quality of life and to be provided with better housing options. I also read that Swanson Homes officially closed on September 30th, 2021. Interesting to note that 2 weeks before the property was officially closed, there was a drive-by shooting that took place that was actually captured on video.
Surveillance video caught the scene as an SUV drives by with someone firing from the sunroof. Despite the scary scene, the 2 young men shot suffered non-life-threatening injuries.
Information about the future of the Swanson Homes location is scarce. The property was listed for sale and the initial bidding was set to close on September 30th, 2021. Ironically, the same day the property was officially closed. The bidding process was extended until October 29th, 2021 to allow for additional bids. However, specific details regarding the final sale price or the buyers have been kept quiet. The property was sold as is, emphasizing its need for redevelopment to meet community housing needs. Most of what you'll find on the internet about Swanson Homes portrays the community that once was in a very negative light. Shootings, violence, death and despair. A decaying neighborhood that seemed to be a burden to the city. However, while researching Swanson Homes, I ran across a few different videos showcasing local organizations that tried to aid this community, and videos that showcased events held to try to bring some form of positivity to a neighborhood that just didn't seem used to that.